Good morning and welcome to Women's Wisdom Through the Ages. You can see that we're a little bit of a different setting today. So I'm with the lovely Shilpa, and can you say your family name again?
Kulshrestha. Complicated? It's quite complicated. So Shilpa will do.
And it's so wonderful to be here. So we're at her home, which is generously provided today for today's interview, which is awesome. So we have a bit more colour than usual, which is fantastic. And just before I introduce her more formally, some of you may not have seen me before. So this particular podcast and video series is called Women's Wisdom Through the Ages. My name is Catherine Elliss, or Catherine Joy, or even Catherine J. And basically it's looking at that women think differently through the ages. So it's about bringing different generations together. So over the time, this will be the 9th episode, and we've already recorded the 10th and the 11th, so we're pretty much up to episode 12 now, which is awesome. And sometimes there's been people in their, haven't had anyone in their teens yet, but a few in their 20s, 30s, 40s, Shilpa's in her 40s, I've just entered my 50s, and then we've had people in their 60s as well. So it's people think differently, and I don't know about you, but have you changed your thinking over your life?
Absolutely. Like when I was young, I used to feel that I need to know everything. Mm-hmm. At this stage, when late 30s and then starting my 40s, I know I don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
It's just being comfortable with who you are, and then always be open to learning. So I think that thinking has changed considerably.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say a lot of people, are just so hungry for knowledge. And I know I've been one of those people as well.
Yes.
And also I think part of my background is as a teacher, especially with high school. So I know quite often teenagers think they know everything. I know I did at the time. I probably drove my parents crazy. And in my 20s I was probably worse. I think by the time I'd been through the rough and tumble of life a little bit, I realised, you sort of learn a bit of humility as life goes on, because it's not exactly, what you've expected. So I want to introduce Shilpa. So she is a career strategist, game changer, coach, and best-selling author of the book Play It Full. She has a rich corporate experience of 16 years in companies like Deloitte, Tech, Mahindra and Westpac, and she is following her purpose of impacting 1 million lives to murder mediocrity. That's interesting, so we'll come into that a little bit later. She's creating massive results for her clients who have been stuck in the corporate life for years by increasing their income by 30 to 50% and helping them create and implement strategies for living a life of purpose and financial success by playing it full in all areas of life. Now, apart from that, which is awesome, as people who regularly listen and watch us, that it's about the woman behind the business, so in this case the woman behind the coaching and behind the book, and also to find out what is her purpose, what drives her, and how does she give back to the community. So welcome, we're really pleased that you've joined us today.
Thanks, Catherine, and for that wonderful introduction. And it's a real pleasure to, actually after all these times when we are seeing everything on Zoom, to actually do something physically with you here. So thank you for that.
And thank you. I know when you first brought it up, I'm like, oh, that's novel. I just didn't even think about doing a live one, because so many times we've been doing it Zoom, even with people in Sydney.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Okay, so first of all, Play It Full. Tell us about that.
Play It Full. So yes, that was the idea. That is the book which me and Kapil, my husband, we have authored. And the idea came from, it's a little bit, there's an overlap with mediocrity. Mm-hmm. So all my life, even though I started as somebody who was a national level ranker, who was a school topper, at some stage in life, like when the other challenges start showing up, we somewhere start giving up bare minimum. We get into that rut of work-life balance, and we don't realize, but that monster of work-life balance, or the demon, it eats up all our excellence. And while we are getting that fat paycheck, there's nothing to worry, we get rusty in job. and somewhere mediocrity creeps in. So this concept of play it full is about playing it full in all areas of life, getting out of that average game, because most of the time in our life we stay in this linear pattern. We want to concentrate on career initially, so we run behind it, and at a point we realize that somewhere we've not taken care of our family, so we go back and we get what you were talking about in 20s, 30s, 40s. So in 20s we are running after our career, in 30s we realize no, we want family. We suddenly get more attached with our parents, we start giving them the call, and we start spending time with our family in the late 30s. And then as 40s start, you realize that your health is not keeping up, and then you run back and come back, and you're not sure what to do. And playfulness from day one, you need to play full in all areas of your life. And having been in the mediocre game, I think playful concept, which I have imbibed in my life, my clients have been living it. It's the best thing that has happened, because it just puts people in their excellence zone everywhere, every area of life.
And I think it's really interesting. For example, I find when people settle for mediocrity, it's because perhaps they don't feel like they deserve more. Have you found that?
Absolutely. One thing is, some of the things that I have seen people around me saying is that we are contented. That contentment cloak is something that enables us to stay in our mediocrity, and we justify it saying that we are contented. So I think contentment is one thing which is again a big monster, just like the work-life balance. There are some things which we feel are good. In fact, I would say contentment is okay, but satisfaction, being satisfied where you are, that's where you stop growing, and that's where you get caught up in that mediocrity.
Yes, and isn't it interesting? As I go through life, I'm aware that there's different personalities, and I know you can have all the personality profiling, but one of them is that you've got, say, 10% of the people are visionaries who can see and are just natural movers and shakers and want to go running ahead. And I'm one of them. And then you've got the early adopters that will come along. But most people are back where you're saying that people are contented where they are, they don't really want to move, and like I was mentioning to you before, Hikaru is one of them. So for those of you who don't know, Hikaru and I have got a secondary video series now, and it's very different when you're doing it with a second person. So tell us, what's it like dealing with Kapil?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful in the sense. So there are good and bad aspects of it. There's always a gray area. So the great thing is that he and I have got very different personalities. He's like fire. If you see, you cannot just ignore his energy. He's a ball of energy. He's always jumping, which is great. It just, if there's somebody like that around you, it just always puts you, you always want to do more and more. And here I am, I'm like water. I'm very calm and composed, and that's how I deal with my clients as well. So, the water and fire, when they come together, I think it makes a perfect mix for our clients. Because mostly we overlap, like we work with both of us work with the same clients.
Oh wow, right.
It helps them, because at times you need that energy. But there are times when you need to be understood, you need that calmness, and you need to be pulled through. So I think it works well that way. Now, talking about the things behind the scenes, yes, there are some storming stages. In fact, when we started, there was some storming. It did start because we have ideas, and despite us being fire and water, we are very strong personalities. Both of us are very strong personalities. So it is like, I've got my idea and he's got his idea, and I'm like, no, we should do like this, and he's like, no, we should do this way. But soon, like as we are moving through in our business, we have found a norm. So we know where to give in and where to keep your point. So I think we are learning through that. It is very different when you are personally spending life with someone, and it's a very different thing when you professionally step into it. But I think the best thing is that we both are growing together.
Absolutely, and I love that. And some people might not be familiar with the storming and the norming, so it's one way of looking at team building, for example. So you've got forming, is it storming and then norming, or norming then storming?
Yes.
And then performing. So we all want to get to the performing, and oh my gosh, you can have one new mix, one new dynamic in there, and it can change again.
Absolutely.
So it's just lovely, and I really love the fact that that you operate separately and you operate together.
Yes.
And I love that. That's what we're doing with Imagineering as well. Sometimes we work, in collaboration or with a wider team. Sometimes Hikairo and I together, and sometimes myself. So with the Women's Wisdom Through the Ages, this is targeted obviously towards women of all different ages. And obviously, working with your husband, that's a big part of life. So a lot of people who are watching will actually have someone there that they'll be able to do things with, and other people won't. So it's just a different dynamic. So it's just wonderful to be talking about that today as well.
Yes.
And just on that, it was really interesting, just before we started the cameras rolling, that we talked about introverts and extroverts. So I'm naturally more of an extrovert. I'm happy in my own company, but say with COVID, I really noticed with COVID that, so let's say for example, I'm relatively new to Sydney. So I was the last 4 years in the Gold Coast, and then most of my life I've spent between, say, Western Australia and even Southeast Asia. And down here, not long after I came, we went into lockdown, or different levels of lockdown. So it's just lovely to actually see someone in person today.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is very different.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, so when we were talking before, we talked about introverts and extroverts. So, and you were saying that you're an introvert. So how were you able to become, a coach when you're introverted?
So people think that introversion is something which is a drawback, and that's what I used to think. In social settings, I wouldn't speak up because I would be, I know it all. I don't need to speak. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to speak it out.
Okay.
But then I realized that it's really not good for me because I'm not speaking my mind, and I get into this format in life where I'm keeping things inside.
Yeah,
I think that's the part which most of the introverts struggle with. They keep the things inside. But you can, if you can just be comfortable with yourself, speak less. If you see Kapil is an extrovert, though he calls himself a little bit of introvert as well, and I understand that aspect, but he's an extrovert, I'm an introvert. There are some things which are great about introverts. They are people of less words, So coming back to Kapil and my example, he's a hunter, he's an extrovert. So he's a hunter, works very well. Yeah. I'm a farmer. Yeah. So he hunts, I farm, I nurture. So introverts have got a lot to give. Even with the less words, they make a much more impact.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the best part is they listen.
Yes.
I think the listening ability they have, and most of the problems in coaching, it is and I say coaching is not about problems. Coaching is about getting into your next level.
Yes.
A lot of things get resolved only if you can listen to the people.
Absolutely.
So that way I feel introverts make much better coach than extroverts. I mean, you need a combination of both, but introverts can really do wonders with their clients.
But as an extrovert, I can say that you can learn to listen better, and especially when you're around people that are introverted, that you can be reminded that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah,
so I need to be listening more, and I'm aware of that. So that's wonderful. Oh, it's a really good reminder.
Yeah.
And you talked about like the work-life balance and health, and that's so important. So I don't know, those of you who have been following us for a while, you may have seen the OMG, I got bitten by a spider and nearly died recently. And that was such a big deal when life can change in a moment. Yeah. So how do you, for example, if you have a client that maybe has a health issue or something, how do you deal with that?
So if there's a health issue, like first of all, I do not go by one goal. Need to have goals in all the three areas, in your career, in your
Mhm.
relationships, and in your health.
Mhm.
And based on that goal, break it into small actions. So I
Yeah.
always believe in simplicity.
Mhm.
When things are complicated, you just don't do it.
Yeah.
Complexity is the enemy of execution.
Mm.
So break into simple things. Think about
Mhm.
what is it that you can do. So if you know we have got a gym in our house, we don't need to go to the gym to get
Yeah.
those six packs and everything. You can still
Mhm.
get it at home.
Yes.
But you need to make it simple. You need to get into a routine. You need to get into a rhythm. You need to get all the help required.
Yes.
I have engaged a PT. Suddenly, it came to our mind. I've engaged a personal trainer
Great.
over Zoom in India, who's
Wow,
going to
I
get
love
me
it.
some
I love
great
it.
results. So,
Yeah.
it is about getting the right help. It is
Yes.
about consistency. It
Yeah.
is about breaking it into small implementable action.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about this massive action. Go on a massive action spree, but
Yes.
it is not big actions. It is
Mhm.
about small baby steps,
Yes.
which you can easily take. And by the time you realize, you are on the other side.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And it's interesting because I find everybody's got different ideas of, like you're saying, in all of the three areas. And so yours are career, relationships, and health. So with career, so say for example, during COVID at the moment, there's so many people that just excuse us as we're looking in different places. We've actually got two cameras because one of the cameras went off. So if we're looking away, we're not ignoring you. We're just trying to capture both cameras just in case one of them just decides to die again. It's a big deal at the moment. There's so many people that are out of work or maybe lost hours. I know I had a bread and butter business contract that due to COVID fell away. So, things can really get impacted. And I think one of the main things with COVID is that things keep changing all the time.
Yeah.
So what is something that you do where you can help people with that?
So most of the programs that I have,
Mm-hmm.
I do not say that this is the result that you will achieve.
Mm-hmm.
What I help people is to step into their power zone.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in your power zone, you
Mhm.
can create whatever results. So people come to me, asking, we want jobs. And I say, okay, step into your power zone. How?
Mhm.
I will tell you. Don't worry about the how, but are you ready to
Mm-hmm.
be in that zone? Are you ready to take the first step?
Yeah.
And you will be surprised, Catherine, even in these times, people get results like 50% salary increase, more than 100% salary increase, career
Yeah.
transition into completely different area.
Mm-hmm.
People, like families, have come together. So
Mm.
even with these uncertain times, one rule that stays the same is you being powerful, you being in your excellence zone,
Mm.
you standing out from the crowd.
Yes.
You do need to stand out from the crowd.
Absolutely.
You need to, something that everyone does is they seek out.
Mm-hmm.
They ask for things. Do not
Mm.
ask. Give so much that people come and give back to you.
Yes.
So from seeking out to becoming sought after is what I work towards. And in this process, people get all the results that they want.
Yeah.
You decide the results that you want. But if you are in your excellence zone,
Mhm.
you can do anything.
Yeah. Great. And so what part of what we do with Women's Wisdom Through the Ages is look at the woman behind. So obviously it's become a very successful business already in such a short amount of time, and both of you had such amazing corporate backgrounds beforehand, which is wonderful. But what I'm interested in, so were you born in Australia?
No, I was born in India,
Mhm.
in a small place called Agra in India. So yeah, and shifted to Australia 12 years back.
Okay, yep. And what brought you to Australia?
Opportunities.
Mhm.
So my husband was getting an opportunity here to manage the Asia Pacific region for
Mhm.
Cognizant,
Mhm.
and I was working for Tech Mahindra. It was called Satyam in those times,
Mhm.
and we thought it's a good opportunity. We were in India since we got married, and we thought let's go and explore what is in there.
Yeah.
We always had that learning and or the
Mhm.
explorer mindset.
Mm.
So that brought us here, and then Australia became home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you always been in the hills? Well, is this classified the hills or is it?
Yes, this is hills. So more or less in this area, we have been in Epping, we have been in Roseville, but more or less this area where there's a good mix of population because there's so much to learn when there are all kinds of people around.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know around the hills, I found out just recently there's 300 parks.
Wow.
So like we love walking and we're filming, and so we're trying to pick up different places, and it's just such a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, Cherrybrook is full of beautiful parks. Yeah.
Okay, and something happened just recently which is really interesting. You are speaking on the World Economic Forum. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that opportunity just came out of a blue. So I have a client who is part of the organizing committee. So she was organizing this in Bangalore, and she, in one of the coaching sessions, after we finished our coaching session, she asked me, would you like to speak there? I said, okay, definitely. I have thought about it. And she invited me to the forum, and that's how I got associated. And after that, I've got to know a lot more people from that forum. And it's great to collaborate with them. It has just opened a whole new world for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's always, sorry, Catherine, just to interrupt. I say it's not about that one client. It is about knowing more people. The more people you know, the more opportunities will come up in your frame.
And I think keeping the momentum going, because sometimes in life we relocate, for example. And so I look back at, even for example, going back to when I first started Imagineering, which was like, say 7.5 years ago, it's not, when you haven't maintained some of the relationships, or Facebook was around, and Twitter had sort of just started, and I had all the accounts and everything, but I never really used them. But to maintain the relationships, because to me, I want to be building relationships and not connections as such. To me, it's you want to be around like-minded people. And one of the things that I loved about talking with Shilpa earlier today was that she also believes in empowering people to help themselves, especially to do with developing nations.
Yes.
And was it with women or?
It is everyone. So women, obviously I have a soft corner for women because I'm a woman myself. So I understand the struggles that women go through and how they just need a little bit of nudge. I've seen just a little bit of nudge, because with women, the thing is, we always keep ourselves at the lowest priority in our family. Somehow it is mentally built. I've worked with women across 9 nations, but I've seen the same thing. They keep themselves at the lowest priority. So it's just that slight nudge which can push them to do something totally extraordinary. So yes, it is with women, but it is with a lot of other people where I help them in enabling them basically. So one of the things is I do not believe that much in charity. I believe in enablement, and Catherine, you know that we were talking about it. It is about doing that little bit of nudging, little bit of enablement so that they can go. And what I love is when I see them more powerful than me.
Yes.
That's a wonderful feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I would say that's more empowering the women. When I'm thinking of enabling, but it's helping it to people to be able. Usually when I think of enabling, I think of if someone has an addiction and you're coming along and you're being part of the problem. However, there's the other word, with empowering, enabling, because you're helping people to become, I suppose, in a way, a better version of themselves, because they're more confident, able to look after their families more. And I know with myself, I find men can help men, and they do a wonderful job. I know so many awesome programs. But as a woman, again, I love helping women, and especially for that reason, because we usually do put ourselves last. But when I've been working, whether it be in community development or economic development or even international aid, it's the women who are becoming the change makers. And so if we can help the women to have their own small businesses, then they usually, I find, I'll just give you an example. Many years ago, we were doing a training session with Indigenous women in the goldfields in Western Australia, and even the kids, just wait for the this is live and uncut, all good, and other people obviously in the house.
Yeah.
And but with that one, it was like that particular area, there was a lot of truancy. But some of the children of the women came and joined. But how we put together the programs was we actually catered extra. So if any of the children or teens or that they joined, that they could get fed, as an example.
Wonderful.
And this particular day, this wasn't training that I'd organised, but I joined with someone else. We were doing first aid. And so these children who were supposed to be at school actually were joining and learning how to do first aid.
Wow.
So that was just amazing. So I love that.
And that's the beautiful thing about, enabling women, empowering women. When you empower a woman, you not only empower her, you empower the whole family, right?
Absolutely.
It just seeps into the family, and then it brings that growth-oriented culture. Sorry for the interruption. It's just life. Yeah. So it seeps into the whole family, that growth-oriented culture, which means that not only that women is impacted, but their children are impacted, their husbands, parents, everybody is impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm curious, how have you had someone in your life or in your family that was an inspiration to you, maybe a brother or an uncle or a grandmother or someone?
In my family has got nothing to do with business. So yes, definitely my dad. My dad, what I had seen him was, he was a professor in a college. But I had always seen him running behind his passion. He loved writing, he loved speaking. So he wrote about 8-9 books in psychology. And I've always seen him that whenever he would work with those people, so he was really passionate about these blind school where he would spend, I would say, 3/4 of his day. I would see him going and speaking at various places. The passion that he lived for, I think that's somewhere it has come into me.
Yeah.
And the rebel that he was, because his day job was great. That is what fed us all those years. But his passion was very infectious, and I think somewhere I picked it up. And now when I started living my passion, I cannot thank him enough, because he seeded in me something when I was very young. I didn't even know that I was picking it up from him.
Yeah.
And now I can understand it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm just aware that we don't want to keep going on for a really long time, because people are busy, and just like if we were at my place, we would have these different noises in the background. So we will what would be some wisdom that you would like to share?
Okay. So the best thing that I have learned, I have heard, or something that I implement is, no matter at what stage you are, go with what you have got, accept where you are. So a lot of times we don't accept the situation.
Just while you're just speaking to the camera, I'm actually going to close that door.
Yeah. So that's the biggest learning that I've had in whatever stage of life you are in. Always accept where you are. Whatever is not working well, whatever you don't have, and whatever you have, know it fully well, recognize it, and then with whatever you have got, just go behind where do you want to be. So where you are, where you want to be, there's just a path in between. Walk on that path, and for that you need to understand where you stand. Even in a GPS, you need to put in the destination and you need to put in the current location.
Absolutely.
If you understand these two very well, the rest of the path, it will become clear.
Yes.
So go behind your goal with everything that you have, fully knowing what you have and what you don't, and what you need to pick up additionally.
Yeah. And also just tell people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, I am there on LinkedIn, very easy. Catherine did talk about social media, how it is important to leverage social media to create the relationships. And like you, Catherine, I do not believe in connection, not a number game. It is about having genuine relationships.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn is where you can find me. You can find me on Facebook as well, but LinkedIn is my favorite platform. It is the most genuine platform I've come across. So yes, you can search for my name and you'll find me there.
Yeah. And I will actually put a link in here, so you'll be able to see that as well. And obviously when I'm sharing that, I'll add, tag Shilpa's name in there as well. So we just really thank her today. We thank you for your patience too. And because, you know, especially during COVID, we're so aware that we're not in our offices like other times that we would be, and so we're just, it's life.
Yeah.
And I love life.